Hey everyone, I'm Jesse at stropro.com, and today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Godox AD600BM version 2. Now, the predecessor to this light was launched around 9 years ago now, and that light was extremely popular. In fact, it's one of the products that really made Godox the huge company that it is today. So when you make changes to a really popular product, you need to do them right. So let's find out what changes Godox made and if it's worthy of your upgrade. So as I mentioned, the previous version of this light was released around 9 years ago. And Godox has only increased the price of the new version by 50 Canadian dollars, like 35 US. So are there enough new features in this light to justify that? Well, we don't have to look very far to find out. One of the best new features of this light is the new TFT color display. So if I power that guy on, you're gonna see that we have a color display here, and it's really nice. So the old version of this screen kind of looked like your TI-83 calculator screen that you use to write your grade 12 math exam. This one is so much better. You can see it in sunlight, you can see it in the dark way easier. It's just cleaner, easier to read, and I really like it. You'll also notice right on the top here that we have these RGB lights. Now that's a new feature in this that gives you a visual indication of what group you're on. So if I change the groups in here, those are actually going to change with it. So you'll have red, green, yellow, a number of different colors in there. So you can just visually quick look at your lights and know what group they're on. Another feature you're going to notice is this 512 right here. That means that we're getting another full stop on the low end of this light. The previous version went down to 1256. Now we go down to 1512, which is 10 full stops. That's actually incredible for a light like this. You know, 9 years ago, most lights were getting around like 1/8 power on the low end, and this has just continued to increase, and Godox is offering amazing technology. So for those of you who really want low light performance, this is going to give it to you. Now, another big feature on this is the 40-watt LED modeling lamp. Now, this is the same one that is on the AD600 Pro, and it's very effective. You can use this in your softboxes to help see where they're pointed. You can use this in low light to help find focus, or you can actually even use this if you had to for some video work, although the fan will kick on and it's not really designed for video, but it's much brighter, really easy to use on this light. You also get a new feature with wireless sync. So if you're using the latest triggers from Godox, like the X3, there's just a simple one button push and you can sync your trigger directly to your lights without having to go and set channel and group on them all. Those features alone are worth far more than $50, I can tell you that. Just this screen alone, I would have paid $100 for, but you're getting all of these other features built in for this amazing price. So why would you want to consider this light versus the AD600 Pro or the latest AD600 Pro version 2? Well, there's really three considerations. The first is going to be the price. This light is around $400 cheaper at retail prices, but you are going to lose some things from the Pro that you're paying for. So the biggest one is going to be TTL. So that's basically automatic mode. Photographers who are shooting events or sports might use TTL all the time and find it very helpful. You can just quickly get your camera settings and just shoot right away. Whereas those of you shooting in a studio or you're just shooting portraits in manual mode all the time, that doesn't really matter and is not worth the cost. So that's where this BM2 really shines. You don't have TTL, but a lot of you aren't going to use it anyway. The other consideration would be the speed. So the 600 Pro recycles at 0.9 seconds at full power, where this light recycles at 1.9 seconds at full power. So a full second slower. At full power levels, you are going to notice it, but once you get down to the mid ranges, you're really not going to notice that practically, and for 99% of you, you'd never see a difference. So if you don't care about TTL and don't need those faster recycling times, you might as well save yourself a bunch of money and go with the AD600BM II. Let's unbox the light now. It's pretty simple in here. There's no case or anything. So you're going to just have right on the top here, you'll have your manual and you'll have the wall cable for your charger. And then there's just a big styrofoam piece here. Once that's out, you'll see all the different pieces in here. So we have our main light, which is obviously the important thing. With this version now, you are getting a reflector. Many of you will recognize that, very similar. Actually, it's the same as the AD600 Pro. Here's the other half of your charger, so you can plug right into the battery here, which we have right there. And then we just have the flash tube. So I'm going to show you how to install all this stuff, and we'll get in depth right now. Let's assemble the different parts on the strobe here. But before I do, I just want you to notice that this is a very similar size to the previous version. So that was one of the nice things about the BM, is that it was nice and compact, fits in your case really well, and the new version continues to do that. You might recognize the front end of this, and that's because it's directly from the AD600 Pro. We have our 40-watt LED modeling lamp, which is much more powerful now on this new version. And we're also going to be using the 600 Pro flash tube. So that flash tube is a flat front, and I'm just going to use the cloth to handle it here just so I don't put fingerprints all over it. We have a 4-prong, and it installs really easy. You just line that up on the front there, the 2 pins on the bottom, and then there's 2 pins on the side. Once they are lined up, you just push it straight in. And the reason why you want to use that cloth is you can get fingerprints on that diffusion material on the front there. And you just want to make sure it's pushed all the way in so it seeds properly there. Now, that being said about the flash tube, the extension head also changes. So the previous version had an extension head that was exclusive for that. This one now shares the H600P, which is the same one as the AD600 Pro as well. So if you have that, you can interchange it or purchase a new one if you want that extra reach. Now, going to the back here, this is actually stayed the same as the previous version. So we're still using the same battery, the AD600BM used, which is the, what is this again? The WB87 here. And it just goes on the exact same way. So you line up the pins on the back there and then just push it on. So I will say one of the things Godox did was made this quite stiff. I'm hoping over time that that loosens up a bit, but it is stiff, new out of the box, and hopefully it just seeds a little bit going in and out. But you still have a battery indicator here. You can click that, it shows you the battery level. And under this little tab right here, we can just lift that, and that's where your charger is going to plug into. And it's the same charger as the previous version as well. One of the things Godox likes to do on the BM series of lights is put this long handle on here. I don't really know why they only do it on this light, but it was the same on the previous version. It gives you a long grip handle. Now, personally, I prefer the handle of the AD600 Pro, just a shorter, that one's metal, this one is plastic, but it's very durable. The previous version never had any issues with it either. So some people love it because you can just give it to your assistant and they can hand hold it wherever you want. Some people don't like it because it just raises it up a little bit more. But you still have a crank handle here, and unlike the original version, which had really hard clicks, this still has clicks in there, but they're much softer and they're not gonna, you don't have to like force it through them. So the handle is fine. You've also got your umbrella adapter right here. Very simple, just back off the screw, slide the umbrella through, really easy. So you do get a reflector with this now, and this is the same reflector as the AD600 Pro, which is a nice slim inline reflector. Bowens mount, so it just mounts the exact same way. Line that up, give it a quarter click, and your release is right up on the top here. So that's nice that that's included now. A lot more slim, looks very similar to the 600 Pro actually. And to remove that, we just pull back, quarter turn the other way, and you can take it off. This handle is a little bit unique compared to other handles, and if you're mounting it onto a baby pin, I just wanted to show you something that's a little bit different. Now, most lights would just stop right at the end here. They would have a stop, but this one, because the handle is hollow, actually goes all the way down. So if I back this screw off, you can see it sets down, so it's actually like way up here. So if you want to actually mount that properly, you just need to feel where that flat spot is and then just lock it in there. Now, it's not going to hurt it if you go down all the way, but it's just you're not locking into the actual spot where you're supposed to. You're going to be right here with the screw. So just something to keep in mind, and this doesn't really apply to a regular light stand that has a standard spigot, just baby pins like you would normally find on a C-stand. Now, I already showed you how to mount the reflector, but what happens if you want the best softbox on the market? Well, that is the Strobe Pro Rapid Snap, and it is the best because it is so easy to set up. You can see how lazy I was. I didn't even take the diffusers or the grid off there. So you literally just snap it into place. And if I can line this up properly here, just line it up like that, click it in, do the Velcro up, and you are set up, ready to go in literally 10 seconds. All right, let's power on the strobe. The way we do that is with the little test icon here, the little flash icon. So press and hold that. Then you're gonna get the wheel indicator show up and you just rotate the wheel. It's just a safety so you don't accidentally turn it on while it's in your bag. So we can adjust power really easily here. Just use the dial. You can turn it up and down. You can see I can adjust in 1/10 increments. And I can go full power, which is 1/1, and I can go back down all the way to 1/512, which is minimum power. That's all great, but 99% of you are going to be using this with a remote trigger. So that's where we're going to start connecting the trigger to the light. So unless you're using this optically, adjusting power on the actual strobe doesn't matter because the controller is always going to override whatever you do here anyway. So let's take a look at how we set our group and our channel. So if I go into the menu, the very first item here is going to be wireless, and we're just hitting the set button to enter that. And you use the set button to highlight the menu where you are, and then just use the dial to rotate it. So wireless should be on by default, and most of you probably want to leave that on. Next is our channel. So you have 32 different channels. You just need to pick one. I'll show you with the controller, you can actually scan to find the best channel on several models of Godox controllers, not all of them. But most of the time you're okay just picking one of the 32. So we'll just leave this here on 10, hit set on there, and then we need to pick a group. So groups, you can have multiple lights on. So if I wanted to have 2 lights on group A to control my background, I want it to adjust the same every time. I don't want one brighter, one lower. I would just leave them both on group A. Then maybe I want to use my key light on group B and a fill light on group C. Easy to do. You just go in here, hit the set, and then just adjust. Now, a new thing with this light, because it's the newest model, is when I rotate the group, you see this little RGB indicator changing color. And that's really cool. It's on both sides of the light, actually. And that allows you to just have a visual indication of what group it's on. So if I see my background lights are both on red, then it's just a quick glance and I can see that. Next we have ID. I recommend most of you leaving this off. There's 99 different IDs, which are basically just little sub-channels, but most people forget to turn those off and have trouble connecting sometimes. So unless you really need it, you're in a crazy wireless environment where you have tons of interference, then just leave ID off. I'm going to go over wireless sync in a minute here, which you can do with some of the newer controllers. That's all we need to do though, set the group in the channel, and then we can back right out of there. Next, we need to set our channel and group on our controller, and this is the same way whether it's on this X3 trigger here, an X2, or you might have an X Pro or X Pro 2. Setting group and channel is basically the same concept. You just go into the menu to access it. So in this one, we just pull down, and I'm using this stylus here just so I don't put fingerprints all over everything. But under the wireless menu, we have our channel. So we were set on 10 before. So I can just scroll up to 10, leave my ID off, and that's all I have to do to set that. So back in the main menu then, I can make sure that I'm set. I could just click in here and adjust the power, and you can see that the power is changing. I'm synced up. So if I wanted to add additional groups or anything, I could just go right here and I could add like B and C if I had some other lights, and you'll see those ones show up on here. And then we can also change modes and everything right from the trigger. So I'm in manual mode. This light doesn't have TTL, so it's not going to show. You can also do multi-mode from this controller as well, but we're not going to get too in-depth with that because we do have dedicated controller videos. Now, one thing I just did want to show you, if I go back into the menu here, this particular trigger has a scan function. So we could hit scan, and now it's searching for the best possible channel, the one with the least amount of interference. So it does its thing for around 20 seconds, and it's going to give you a list of channels that you could go in and then set on your light. So you see the little status wheel going around. We're almost there. And this isn't going to automatically apply them right away, but I will show you a way that you can do that. So right here, it's saying these 6 channels are the best. So, if you wanted to pick number 7 or whatever, you could do that. I want to show you one special feature about the AD600BM II. This is also available on the AD200 Pro II and the AD600 Pro II, but you need to be using this X3 trigger. So if I go back into my wireless setting here, we have wireless sync at the bottom. So let's say I want to change this channel. I want to go channel 29, and I do want to put an ID there. 29 and 9 on the ID. I hit wireless sync. Now I go over here to my menu on my strobe. I go to wireless sync, click OK, and instantly everything from the controller has been transferred over to the light. You can see I have channel 29 and I'm on ID 9. So that's just a quick way that you can sync all of your lights in your studio really quickly. You don't have to go through each one. You just access the wireless sync menu and you're good to go. Now, it's not available, like I said, on every controller, but most of the new lights that Godox is releasing will have that now. So just remember, if you added something like the ID, you want to make sure you take that off if you're using a light that's not compatible with that yet. So there you go. That's how you set up your controller. And we have dedicated videos on all of these controllers where we go into way more in-depth every function. So check those out if you have any questions on it. Now I'm going to show you some of the physical buttons on the strobe. We already went over the wheel to change power, just rotate it left and right. In the bottom left here, there's something interesting that you can see. This is the T1 flash duration time. So as you adjust it, you'll see that number change. That just gives you an indication of the flash duration. So if you're doing some high speed, like water droplets, and you're trying to hit a certain duration there, you can actually see it indicated. There is also a T5. You can't change that. This is always just going to be defaulted to the T1. Up in the left-hand side here, we have our channel, and we have our group here indicated by the big A, battery level, and then the beep on the top right, which I'll show you how to turn off and on when we get into the menu. So by default, we're just in manual mode here. We can change that mode up here on the right by clicking the mode. Now we are in multi-mode, and there's only 2 different modes on this light because there is no TTL. It is a manual strobe, but we do have this one. So multi-mode is used to take a sequence of flashes all exposed in one frame. So we can adjust all of these powers here, but the main thing we want to adjust is the number of shots or times and the hertz. So if I hit the set button here and I adjust this to say 10 shots at, we'll leave it at 5 hertz. If I hit the test button here, I'm going to close my eyes. You just saw that it fired off 10 shots in a row at 5 hertz. So this is a great way to capture action. So say a skateboarder doing a trick, but it's best used on dark backgrounds and at lower power levels. So I'm at 1.512, so I have a big, like a number of shots I could do. Like I could do 100 shots at that one if I wanted. But as I bring the power and the hertz up, my power level is limited here. So you see, as I get up to a quarter power, I can only do 2 shots at 12 hertz. And even if I go higher, that's where it caps out. It won't go any further than 1/4. I should also mention you can't do this in high-speed sync. But if you think of the hertz and the times here. Let's go back to 512 and reset this to 10 and 5. So the way that you figure out your shutter speed, because normally you're going to use longer shutter speeds on here, is that you take your number of times, your number of shots divided by your hertz. So if I do that, 10 divided by 5 is going to give me 2, so I need a 2-second shutter speed at a minimum to expose this shot. And you can actually look in the manual or just pull up a chart online and you can see those different equations. Not a lot of people are going to use this mode, but it is useful if you do want to do some of those sequence shots. What it's not used for is setting your camera to continuous high or continuous low and just blasting off shots. That is not what multi means, so just keep that in mind. Just remember what I said earlier about the controller always being in charge of the light. It's going to override any settings that you have here. So we can make setting changes here, but immediately they're going to be overridden when we put our controller on. I could test fire the light just to see physically what we've set here. Optical modes in multi-mode, so like our S1, S2, which I'm going to go over in a minute, actually won't work in multi-mode. However, you could use your third-party trigger if you happen to have one with a PC sync cable to trigger it that way. But again, just remember, if you're using a controller, which you likely are, it is always going to override the settings that you put on the strobe. Moving on, we'll go back to manual mode, and I want to show you a new upgrade on the version 2 of the AD600BM, and that is our 40-watt modeling lamp. So this is really nice. If I activate this, I have 3 different modes, so I can have it off, I can have free, which will allow me to go in here and I can set this to wherever I want, up to 100%. Now, automatically when you do that, you hear the fan kick on there. So that's something to be aware of. It will activate the fan. We'll just turn that down to 10%. Or we can also do prop. So if I go to prop and I go back out to the menu, now my modeling lamp is going to adjust with the power of the light. What prop is supposed to do is give you a visual representation of the power of your light. Now, most of the time, if you're going to use this modeling lamp with a softbox, I recommend probably just leaving it on 100% or not even using it at all. This is a wireless, or I should say a battery-operated strobe, so conserving battery power is always the main objective. But you do have a very nice, bright modeling lamp that you can adjust in multiple steps there. Or I can just hold that and turn it on. It'll go right back to the mode that we had it set in. So there's prop, or if I just click it again once right here, then I can go into my individual settings that I had there. So we'll just leave it off, but really nice additional feature having that 40-watt modeling lamp on this strobe. The last button is our test fire button, which also doubles as our power button. So if you just need to test fire the light, you just hit that and it's going to fire. You notice that we had the beep on there, and we'll go in and show you how to turn that off if you don't like the beep. So into the menus. Now I am on firmware version 1.02, which is the latest firmware with the release of this light. That can change over time. Honestly, on this light, they don't change it a lot because there's not a TTL function, which is normally where most of the changes come from. On the previous version, there was only a couple over like the 8 to 10 years that that light was out. So we already went through the wireless. We showed you how to set all of that, so I won't go through that again. But that's the menu where you access all of your wireless settings. Now, if you're not using a controller, but you still want to fire this light, we do have the option to set the photo cell. So the photo cell is up top here. When we have that activated S1, if I go back into the main menu here, now you're going to see S1 pop up in the top right. Now this light is looking for another light to fire it. It can be any flash, it could be a speed light, it could be a pop-up flash, or anyone else's flash as well. So if you're at a wedding, you need to make sure this is off or your light is just going to be firing. The only limitation to this is line of sight. That's why wireless triggering through a controller is a much better option. But in a pinch, you do have that ability to turn on S1. You also have S2. Basically the same thing. It just tries to sync with a pre-flash delay. So that could be like TTL or a red eye reduction. Most people are never going to use S2. If you're wondering, don't use S2, use S1 if you're in doubt, but most of the time you're going to leave that off. Next, we have HSS, which is high-speed sync. Now, I'm not sure why Godox still puts this on the light, because high-speed sync is accessed through the controller. So when you have your controller on your camera, for most cameras I should say, when you roll over your native shutter speed, which would be 1/200th or 1/250th on most cameras, then it's automatically going to turn on high-speed sync. Now with Canon, you got to actually push the button on the controller and activate it, or go through the menu to activate it. Each controller is a little bit differently, but it's usually always done on the actual controller. So the ability to go in here and turn HSS on and off really isn't necessary, but it is there. Maybe it's some of the older cameras that still need it. I'm not sure. I'll find out that, but you can see it appear on the top right there. You have the little H with the lightning bolt, and that allows you to shoot up to 1/8000th of a second, which is awesome for a light, especially at this price point. Back into the menu, we'll just turn high-speed sync off here, move on to the modeling lamp. So there's two different modes that we can do with the modeling lamp when the strobe flashes. So I can have it either on continuous, which will just leave the modeling lamp on as the strobe flashes, or I can set it to inter. And what inter does, as the strobe flashes, the modeling lamp turns off. So the only time this would really affect anything, if you were shooting at really low power levels, which this light allows you to go down 10 stops, down to 1/512th, which is extremely low, maybe you could have some of that modeling lamp interfere in the shot. It'd be pretty rare, but if your modeling lamp was at full power and your strobe was maybe at minimum, that's where it could come into play. So let me just show you real quick what I mean here. I'm going to turn it into continuous just to show you here. We'll get out, so I'm going to drop this way down so I don't blast my eyes out here. So when I turn the modeling lamp on, we'll just set it to 10%, and I test fire the light, you're going to see that that modeling lamp is staying on. It's not changing. Now, if I change this to inter, now when I fire, you see the modeling lamp turn off real quick. So that's what I'm saying. Your LED could affect a really low light shot, or a low power shot, I should say. If you want a visual indication and you're not using the beep, this would be a good way to do it. So if you leave it on inter here and you test fire, you can see that it recycles super quick at these low power settings, but at full power, it takes like a second. You can just visually see that, okay, my light is recycled. I'm ready to go again. I'll just change it back to continuous. You can play around with that, whichever one you like. And we will turn this off. If I just hold it, it'll turn it off there. Back into the menu for our next feature here. That's the beep. So if you don't like that recycling beep, you can just turn it off. And again, now when I test fire, there's no beep versus when I do. And it is a quite loud beep too, so if you don't like that, just turn it off right here. This next one is type. So older flashes and strobes used a different scale. So if you still have some of those kicking around, or perhaps you just learned on this scale and you like it better, you can actually change it here. So if I go back into the menu, now my fraction, like my 1/512, 1/256, all the way up to 1/1 full power is gone. Now I'm using a scale from 1 to 10, and that's giving me 10 stops of power. It's much harder to understand this if you're learning. I highly recommend leaving it in the fraction scale, because you would think here that half power would be 5. It's not, it's actually 9. So it's just a different way of looking at the scale in stop. So most of you, again, just leave that in the fraction. It's much easier to understand. But some of the pro photo shooters still like that other scale, which is why it's still on there. Standby, we can just set the time that the screen will go off. So I've got it set to 3 minutes right now, which is the max. Most of the time you would leave this on 30 seconds just to save battery. Once it hits 30 seconds, it's just going to turn the screen off. The strobe is still on though. So we'll set that back to 3 minutes for our video. Auto off, this will actually turn the light completely off. I normally recommend leaving that on. So you can go, you saw there's a 120, 90, or 60 minutes. So the only time I might not turn this on if I was at a wedding reception and I had my lights up high and I wanted to make sure that they were always on and not gonna fall asleep, I might leave that set to off. So you can just go there. Next is our brightness for our screen. Because we do have this new color screen, this actually does make a difference now. So if you need to adjust this for outside, dim it down or brighten it up, you can do that. By default, I believe it was just at 70% there. Next is flash delay. So again, a feature you're not going to use. Don't set this unless you know what you're doing, because you're going to introduce a whole bunch of problems. Some triggers have a fractional delay in them, so none of the Godox ones this applies to, but if you had an old trigger that you were possibly using, like a PC sync port or something, you can add delay into the triggering here. Again, 99.9% of you will never use that, but it is there if you need it. Next is a masking mode. Again, this is a mode you're probably not going to use, but you can do this with multiple lights. It's normally used for clipping subjects out of backgrounds, so it'll make essentially a mask like you would do in Photoshop of your subject, but it does use multiple lights. Again, something you're probably not going to use because it's more easily done in Photoshop now. Language, we can select that between English and Chinese. Normally leave it on English. And back here we have the reset. So if you mess something up in there and you can't figure out what it is, you can just roll over to the reset and just click yes, and it will set you back to your defaults. And then below that, we just have our device info. So that's just going to give you the model number and then the version number as well. That's the firmware version, so you can always find the latest firmware on our site or go direct to Godox if you'd like to. And that's all of the functions right now. Again, I said that there could be more. If you're watching this video a couple of years in the future, there might be a few different changes in that system, but it stays pretty consistent throughout the years. So there you have it. That's everything you need to know about the Godox AD600BM II. When we started this video, we asked the question if we thought it was worth a $50 upgrade. Well, I think Godox has just taken everything we loved about the original version and made it a lot better. It feels modern, it's clean, easy to operate, and I love this light. So if you don't need TTL, this is definitely the one to consider. Now, if you're in the market for this light, please consider purchasing it from Strobe Pro. We're going to offer you a free 2-year in-house warranty, plus you'll have phone and email support whenever you need it. If you need stands, modifiers, or accessories for this light, be sure to check out strobepro.com, where we have a full lineup of Godox products, plus our exclusive Strobe Pro products, which are second to none. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please help us out by liking or subscribing. And until the next one, enjoy creating.